Welcome to the 700 Club. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, he told President Trump a monstrous lie. He said Palestinians teach their children peace. Well, the Palestinian culture and its media tell a very different story.
They sure do. Palestinians often openly honor terrorists who have killed Israelis. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Jerusalem.
This is what Mahmoud Abbas told President Trump in the White House on May 3rd.
أؤكد لكم يا فخامة الرئيس أننا نربي أطفالنا وأحفادنا وأولادنا على ثقافة السلام.
But this is what you can hear their children say on Palestinian television.
نحارب اليهود ونقتلهم نقدر عليهم إلى حرب تدق الظلمة تزهق روح صهيوني يا بني صهيونة يا شر البرية يا قرودا همجية يا خنازيرا شقية وأن عدونا صهيونة شيطان له ذيل.
There is no greater lie than Mahmoud Abbas saying that they're teaching their children to have peace. They demonize Israelis and Jews in every which way possible.
Itamar Marcus of Palestinian Media Watch says that not only are their children taught to hate Jews, but the theme of celebrating deadly violence against Israel also extends into Palestinian culture. The Palestinian Authority named schools, town squares, and even sporting events after Palestinians who kill Israelis. One street in Ramallah is named after Ahmed Yassin, the founder of Hamas. Another street bears the name of Yahya Ayash, named the engineer for developing Palestinian suicide bombs. And one square is named after Abu Sukar, the man known as the refrigerator bomber.
What did he do to make himself famous? He took a refrigerator, brought it to Ben Yehuda Street in the center of Jerusalem, filled it with explosives, and it detonated, killing 15 Israelis. So that makes him a Palestinian hero, and there's a square in his name. Basically, anyone who's killed a large number of Israelis is presented by the Palestinian leadership as a hero to their people.
As President Trump plans to meet again with Abbas during his visit to the Middle East in a few weeks, Marcus doesn't think Trump is aware of what goes on inside the Palestinian Authority.
It's urgent that they get the proper message, because otherwise they'll be pushing for something that would be a disaster for Israel. We must have a peace process, but you must have educational peace process before we can even begin talking about a political peace process.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
That's a story you're not going to hear on other news outlets, but we want to tell you the real story of what's going on inside the Palestinian Authority, what they're teaching their children, what they have in their schools. Here's a culture that stores rockets in their schools. It's just unimaginable. They create their targets, use their children as shields. It's truly unbelievable. Here's another fact. They pay the terrorists and their families a monthly salary. It's called the Pay for Slay program. And Mahmoud Abbas is the architect of that program. 30% of all the foreign aid to the Palestinian Authority goes to pay terrorists, and the monthly amount that's being paid increases based on the severity of crimes against Israelis. If you're an American citizen like me, it's your tax dollars funding that. And to have him sit in the White House and say, we teach peace and we're a culture of peace, no, it's a monstrous lie, and we need to wake up to it. We're funding this, and it needs to stop. Well, in other news, some Democrats are still pushing for an independent counsel to investigate the Russian activities in last year's election. But so far, Republicans aren't going along with it. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Well, that call for an independent counsel was just one of the developments at a Senate intelligence hearing. The committee's leading Democrat also told the acting FBI director that if he experiences any political influence from the White House in an attempt to quash the agency's investigation into Russian meddling, that he should let the committee know. Eric Rosales has that story from Capitol Hill.
Speaking at a hearing on worldwide threats, Andrew McCabe sat in the hot seat as acting director of the FBI. McCabe is occupying the seat that earlier this week belonged to James Comey.
Has the dismissal of Mr. Comey in any way impeded any of the work at the Federal Bureau of Investigations?
There has been no effort to impede our investigation to date. Quite simply put, sir, you cannot stop the men and women of the FBI from doing the right thing, protecting the American people, and upholding the Constitution.
Under oath, McCabe was also asked if the rank and file had lost confidence with James Comey as FBI director. He said that assertion from the White House was not accurate.
I can tell you that I hold Director Comey in the absolute highest regard. I have the highest respect for his considerable abilities and his integrity, and it has been the greatest privilege and honor of my professional life to work with him.
President Trump's actions this week cost us an opportunity to get at the truth, at least for today.
Virginia Senator Mark Warner used the hearing to lash out at the commander-in-chief. He and others then questioned McCabe about what he knows and what he heard, specifically between the former FBI director and President Trump.
Did you ever hear Director Comey tell the president he was not the subject of an investigation?
Sir, I can't comment on any conversations the director may have had with the president.
When did you last meet with the president, Director McCabe?
I don't think I'm
Was it
in a position
earlier
to
this
comment
week?
on that. I have met with the president this week, but I don't really want to go into the details of that.
But Russia did not come up.
That's correct. It did not.
Senators reiterated calls to appoint an independent special counsel to get to the bottom of what occurred during the 2016 U.S. presidential election. President Trump fired back Thursday, saying he planned to fire FBI Director James B. Comey regardless of the recommendations of his Deputy Attorney General and others in the Justice Department. It's unclear how long McCabe will serve as acting director. He joined the FBI in 1994 and became Deputy Director in 2016. No doubt this latest assignment is the biggest in his career. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Eric Rosales, CBN News.
Thanks, Eric. No people of faith face greater hostility anywhere in the world today than Christians. That was the message from Vice President Mike Pence at the first ever World Summit in Defense of Persecuted Christians this week right here in Washington, brought together by evangelist Franklin Graham. More than 600 believers from 130 nations came to the event. Paul Strand brings us that story.
More than 200 million Christians in some 50 nations are facing high, very high, or even extreme persecution. Just about every month, more than 300 are killed for their faith.
Persecuted Christians often feel isolated and alone. Franklin Graham called this summit to let them know the church stands in solidarity with them, and it's working on solutions to fight that persecution.
The presence of the U.S. Vice President showed the attacks are getting attention at the highest levels.
How deeply humbling it is for me to stand today before the courageous men and women who are with us, who have stood without apology for their faith in Christ and suffered persecution across the wider world.
Because being captured on camera at such a summit could cause them further trouble back home, those actually facing persecution preferred telling their stories behind closed doors. But Graham warned believers here in the U.S. are also starting to face discrimination, such as homosexual attacks on Christian businesses.
We've seen businesses put out of business, targeted, and then the gay activists come in, and liberal judges in those states support these decisions. And we see businesses now afraid, Christians are afraid that they'll be attacked.
Pence assured those facing persecution and discrimination this nation won't forget them.
You have the prayers of the American people, prayers of my family, and you have the prayers of the President of the United States.
And I appreciate that President Trump has kept his word. And he's going to do that, not just on religious liberty, but I think he's going to do this in fighting ISIS and defeating the enemies of the cross.
Franklin Graham hopes that church leaders return to their homes encouraged and ready to stand faithful for the gospel, no matter what they face. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, Paul. Gordon, so much to learn from our persecuted brothers and sisters in Christ.
One of the things to learn is to uphold them in prayer. I was at that conference in Washington, and the cry continually from those who are being persecuted in the Middle East is, when will the United States wake up? It's almost like we want to have willful blindness. In our last administration, the Muslim Brotherhood was called a social welfare organization. When 21 Coptic Christians were murdered on a beach in Libya, they were called contract workers. It wasn't identified as to what was really going on, that they were being killed for their Christian faith. And at the end of that slaughter, the leader of that group pointed a knife across the Mediterranean and said, by Allah's will, we will do this in Rome. We need to wake up to the threat that's facing Christianity worldwide. There's a genocide going on in the Middle East, and it's specifically targeted at Christians.